Hi, my name is Kel and I'm a therapist and educator with a special interest in eating disorders. Come on in, take a seat, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe for bite-sized content across the mental health and eating disorder spectrum. If you're a returning viewer, you might notice that I've changed locations today. Given that this feels like a little bit more of a chatty and relaxed video, I thought this would be a good opportunity to try a little bit more of a relaxed setting for the video. I would love to hear your feedback about that in the comments section. From the title, you're probably already gathering that today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my experience of being on social media as a professional, as a therapist. If you're not a therapist watching this video, it might never have occurred to you that typically talking therapists feel discouraged from posting publicly on social media. Generally, we might use pseudonyms or abbreviations of our names, perhaps maiden names, and some people will simply choose not to have social media profiles. There is a number of reasons for this, but the main ones are around protecting our own personal privacy and also around the impact of that upon our therapeutic relationships. I think it's generally believed that if a client can access our personal information on social media and they know potentially significant amounts about us from those channels, that could be damaging to the therapeutic relationship. I think we have to take into account that in some instances it might also potentially have a positive impact, and I think that is something that's talked about less. I absolutely did think about these things when I chose to start putting myself on social media. Of course, the main aim of my YouTube channel and also all of my social media channels, I have Instagram and a Twitter and also the blog, is about raising awareness about eating disorders and mental health, and is not really in many senses about myself. But of course, my face is here and I'm talking to you about some of my feelings too. So I really consciously thought about how I wanted to portray myself and what I was comfortable with sharing on social media. I have to keep in mind that potentially clients, current clients or future clients, will happen upon these videos and may watch some or all of them. And they might learn things about me or my perspective on things that I need to be open to having a conversation about. These things tend to be something that are not explored enough, in my opinion, during therapy training or in CPD. It's simply kind of generally assumed that as a blanket idea, it's just not a good idea to do it. And actually, I think there's lots of benefit to be garnished from sharing education and awareness online. And I don't want to be prohibited from doing that because I'm also a talking therapist. I did think about what that would mean for me. How much of myself am I willing to put out here? How do I ensure that my clients feel comfortable in working with me if they also do happen upon this content? And they're conversations I absolutely will have with clients. So if you're a client of mine watching this and you want to have that conversation, please bring it to me in the next session. But social media has other impacts related to it. We've already talked about it in some existing videos in this last couple of weeks in terms of how social media can impact upon our self-esteem and our confidence and the need to use social media in only proactive ways. And of course, I to some degree thought about those things in putting myself out here, but I definitely didn't give it as much thought as I did about kind of those privacy and therapy related aspects. As somebody who considers herself to have good body confidence and to feel pretty comfortable putting images of myself out on social media without any editing, I kind of thought that was as far as it would go. I do make a proactive decision not to edit images that I put out on social media, not to change my body shape or my body size in any way. But of course, I do still choose to put out pictures that I prefer. And I never really give that any detailed thought until I started editing YouTube videos of myself. I have thought about what I would like my professional self to be on social media. How do I want to come across? I want to come across as professional, clear, informative, and also kind and approachable. Sometimes when recording videos, I stumble on my words, I say something incorrectly. I want to pause for a second to go and check a fact or a statistic that I'm not absolutely certain about. And the consequence of that has kind of been that sometimes a 10-minute YouTube video is a whole hour of footage. I really didn't think that that would be something that would happen. I teach about eating disorders so often, and when teaching in a classroom of people or to a Zoom window as it is nowadays, I don't really ever notice myself stumbling over my words or feeling that I'm being unsuccinct. There you go, there's a perfect example. And yet in YouTube videos, it is a little bit more challenging, partly because of the expectation here. Videos need to be quick and to the point, and you don't want me stumbling over my words like that, or at least that's what the internet gods say about creating good content on social media. I suppose it makes sense that we want to put our best foot forward, but as somebody that has made these posts about social media in these past few weeks, I'm also acutely aware that just by editing myself in that respect, I am presenting a particular version of myself. Beyond that, another thing has also come up. In editing a whole hour of content of myself sat here talking to you, despite my body confidence and my comfort level in my own self, it is a pretty weird thing to do. You don't actually hear yourself speak in the same way other people hear you speak until you watch yourself back in a video, and you become, or I become, acutely aware of those times that I stumble over my words, or maybe words that I repeatedly use. And there is a desire within me to go back and change them or edit them out. And that is also true when it comes to things like lighting or angles. I know one of the videos I've already put up on this channel, the lighting was off a little bit and the camera settings were not correct, and so it just didn't look as apparently aesthetically pleasing based on what I've learned about making good YouTube videos. And it kind of affected my confidence a little bit. I thought about taking the video down. I thought, is this video good enough? Does this portray me well enough? And although that isn't enough in my experience to impact negatively upon my self-confidence, I think over a period of time it has the potential to do that. And if it has the potential to do that for me, somebody that talks about body confidence and being good enough and feeling comfortable in themselves, I can only imagine how damaging that is for people who struggle with those things in their day-to-day life. And it's come as a surprise to me that it is already impacting me in that way. So much so that I felt the best thing to do was to be transparent about that. The videos that you're watching, although they are not heavily edited, I'm not changing the way that I look, they are the best takes, or my interpretation of the best takes of me speaking and sharing content. They are the images of myself that I preference, and in that sense, whether I like it or not, I am sort of reinforcing the whole ideal of images in a way that I'm actually not that comfortable with. And I don't really know how I would go about getting around that unless I was to put out apparently poor content, which of course the internet gods tell me people aren't going to watch. So it's been a really interesting thing to start to think about and start to experience. I think how I'm going to handle it is that I'm going to try and ignore some of those little bits in videos that really don't make that much difference, or at least in my opinion don't make that much difference. So for example, I would highly anticipate that at some point in this video it's going to be that the lights that I've got set up have caught on my glasses and refracted a little bit. That can be a bit distracting, but how important is that when I'm making educational content? Probably not that much. Maybe something else that I will also do is choose to put out videos that I don't feel are 100% perfect, because if the content is there, if the information and the facts are true, I think it's helpful for me to not get too preoccupied on the details, if that's something that I would encourage you not to do. If we start seeing some less perfect content, we'll get used to it. We'll start consuming more and more less perfect content. In fact, I'd encourage you, go and find some less than perfect content. I think I would like to make a point of posting some images on my professional profiles that maybe aren't the best images, even perhaps some silly ones when I pull a silly face or get a bad angle. Because how important is this stuff? I'm here to share my knowledge with you. I'm not here to be a pretty face or to worry too much about the aesthetics of what I'm presenting. I would love to hear from any of you who are therapists or professionals watching this who have reflected on some of this stuff yourself, how you feel about all of this. And if you're somebody who isn't a therapist, I would love to hear if it had ever occurred to you that we as therapists think about all of this stuff. It's interesting, and I absolutely will make a video in the future on more reflections as I have them, if I have them. Until next time, be kind, be curious, be yourself.